She was 65 years old when she sold her home, loaded her 2 small dogs and cat into her SUV, and disappeared down a long dirt road. At the end of the road was an old stone house hidden from the world. Her life had been devoted relentlessly, passionately to teaching the 8-limb path of yoga. But sometimes life delivers a message you can't ignore. Hers came through her body, a hip injury, then a long wait for replacement. And just like that, she found herself at the crossroads. No map, no plan, no idea what came next. That woman was me. Welcome to Wise Woman Stories. I'm your host, Delia Quigley. And in this episode, I'm taking you inside the journey, the unexpected path that led to the creation of the Mindful Mandala cards. This story is about creation, about listening, and about what was quietly shaping my life long before I had the words for it. So there I was living out in nature, falling asleep to coyotes howling in the distance. And before I knew it, 4 years had passed. And somewhere along the way, I became one of nature's creatures. I was healing old wounds, new wounds, the kind you can see, the kind you can't. I walked that land with my camera in my hand and photographing the light, the seasons, Mother Nature. And then one day, she appeared, a black snake. At first I was afraid. She began to appear a lot, looking in at the window, curled on the wicker chair, sliding through the deer skull on the porch. It's like she was always there, always watching me. But I knew she was harmless, and I began to watch her. Then I began to photograph her. And slowly something changed. The fear faded, and in its place, curiosity. By the time she came to me in my dreams, I was no longer afraid. Actually, I was inspired. I began layering her photo images together, one over the other, and shapes began to emerge. Shapes I recognized. Shapes that became mandalas. A mandala is a circle without beginning or end. It is a reflection of the infinite, moving both outward and inward. You see it everywhere, the shape of the earth, the sun, the moon, and in the unseen circles of our lives, our relationships with our friends and our family, with our community. As I continued creating, I began to notice that these mandalas were beginning to bring something invisible into form, something I felt was alive, something that I saw was capable of transforming a suffering mind. So I followed that instinct. I curated a photography exhibit, 21 mandalas. 7 to represent the challenges we face, the darker emotions that shape our lives. 7 tools representing the higher states of being we can choose to move to. And 7 actions, the steps that move us from one challenge to the other, a higher state of awareness. Now, each mandala was printed on metal. It was hung on the walls, and beside it was a written description describing the emotion. When people entered the gallery, they were invited to pause, to think of something in their life they wanted to understand or to resolve. Then they reached into a small basket and selected a piece of paper. It read, "In this moment, you're asking how to resolve your most pressing issue. Using the mandala as your guide, you can explore what emotion is presently running you." Now, here's the truth. I don't know where it all came from. People would ask me, and I'd say, I channeled it. But what does that really mean? What is being passed along to me, and by whom? I was the conduit for this knowledge, and that everything I had lived, studied, and experienced, but had somehow gathered itself, had arrived all at once. And at that point, my role was simple: show up and do my part. Somewhere in all of this, I began to see the mind differently, like a system, as if we were each born with certain patterns already in place, patterns I began to call software. There are the inherent tools we have, such as love, kindness, compassion, generosity, and we also embody the mind poisons, such as ignorance and fear, attachment, pride. Those are the dark emotions, and they shape our many choices. This is how it works. A thought arises and triggers an emotion. That emotion drives a reaction. Sometimes small, perhaps just a moment of irritation. Sometimes much deeper, something unresolved, waiting for a reason to surface, like anger, jealousy, fear. Or something higher, kindness, patience, compassion. It's pretty simple, really. These emotions are running us. Every decision, every reaction, every moment of connection or separation. So I sat down and drew it out on a piece of paper. First, the housing for all of this software, our physical structure, our body, and the mind, filled with thoughts and dark emotions. So I call them our challenges. And then our deeper self, higher qualities we can access, I call the tools. But we needed a bridge between where we are and where we could be, and I call those actions we could take. Because here's the truth. You will always experience emotional challenges, even on the best day of your life. Something will arise, something will trigger you, but you always have a choice. You can always shift your thoughts. And more importantly, you can take an action. You should know that the idea to create a set of cards had been with me for a long time, like since my early 20s when I was learning how to use the tarot cards. I knew it was my destiny. So then life, of course, began to shape me, put me through some trials and tribulations, sent me off on the road to travel. I worked in dance, in the theater, I wrote books, and I always had a camera in my hand, capturing something. And then one day yoga found me, or maybe I found it. And eventually, after, maybe 10 or more years, I opened a yoga studio. And for 20 years after that, I taught daily, consistently, year after year, to people of all ages, teaching them how to care for themselves, learning how to care for myself, how to listen inward. And at the same time, I was studying, reading, practicing, living the process of self-inquiry, living what I was teaching. Oh, yeah, there were challenges, moments that asked more of me than I thought I could give. But I stayed with it. And over time, everything I was learning, everything I was living, began to come together, began to make sense. Meanwhile, that idea to create the cards waited until one day, in 2018, the idea stepped forward, clear as anything, and said to me, "It's time." You know, I have this book. It's a large, hardcover book. Its pages are thick. It's filled with mandala photos glued in place. And around them there are handwritten notes, quotes, thoughts, reflections. Sometimes friends would come by and I'd place the big book in their lap and ask them to write something, turn a page, something about peace or gratitude or whatever was present for them. Most of them did. And slowly that book began to fill. Until one day, I realized I had everything I needed and more. And that's when the question came to me. How would this simple experience, this quiet interaction with the mandalas, speak to something deeper within each person? Well, it was time for me to find out. So it's opening night of the mandala exhibit, and I've recruited a few young girls to stand at the door welcoming the people in, holding the basket with the slips of paper, and explaining to them what they're about to experience. I had no idea what was going to happen. I really didn't. But what unfolded was more than I could have imagined. People didn't just look at the mandalas, they experienced them. One woman purchased a challenge, a tool, and an action mandala and told me she was going to hang them to guide her out of her dark emotions that had been shaping her life. Another woman returned every day on her lunch break, and she would stand in front of the forgiveness mandala and cry. Others returned too, again and again, each time choosing a new slip of paper I'd left by the door, asking a new question. And somehow they were finding answers that had eluded them for years. And that's when I knew the exhibit had done its job. It showed me what I'd known was coming into being, and the next step was clear. Bring the mandalas into a form people could hold, something they could return to again and again, like a set of self-inquiry cards, not oracle cards, not tarot cards, but cards that guided them into a different, deeper conversation with their self. They consist of 3 decks: challenges, tools, actions, 25 cards in each deck, and I call them the mindful mandala cards, your guide to resolving life's challenges. And then COVID hit. The world shut down. Everything paused. But for me, it became a time of focus. I was alone with the work, designing the cards, refining the images, choosing the right colors again and again until they felt right. And then came the question, how do I bring this into the world? Most places had totally shut down. Printers were not available. There were no answers and no clear path forward, but somehow one door opened. There was a printer willing to work with me, willing to stay in the conversation. And so we went back and forth again and again, adjusting, refining, waiting, until finally they were ready. And then one day they arrived. Boxes and boxes and boxes of something that had once been just an idea and now was real. There's something I could literally hold in my hands. And in that moment, I was reminded that when something is ready to come through you, it will ask for your patience. It will ask for your trust, your willingness to stay with it, even when the path isn't quite clear yet. And yet, just as those cards arrived, another knowing came. It was time. It was time for me to take the cards out into the world. It was the close of 2020, and I packed up my SUV, not really knowing where I was going, only that I was meant to go. By this point, the mindful mandala cards had become a labor of love. They're not just images. They are a distillation of what I've lived, what I've observed, and what I've come to understand about what it is to be human. I was also deeply moved by the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, this idea that we can become a bridge from darkness to light, from despair to hope, or from doubt to faith. And that's what these cards offer, a way through the mental confusion, a way to meet whatever is arising and to shift it, gently, consciously, because I've seen it done over and over, in others and in myself. We don't suffer without reason, but we often suffer due to ignorance. The mindful mandala cards bring light to what feels hidden, so that step by step, you can move forward and out into that light. If something in this episode resonates with you, if you're drawn to explore this practice in your own life, you can find the Mindful Mandala cards at mindfulmandala.com. They're there as a guide whenever you feel ready to begin. As I've been recording these conversations with myself and other women over the past year, something has become very clear. These stories are the voices of women who have lived, who have questioned, who have walked their own paths and come through the pain and uncertainty of life with wisdom and a deep knowing. And that feels important to name. So from this point forward, stories becomes Wise Woman Stories. Because what we're really listening to here is the wisdom that comes from living a life fully. And I'm honored to share these wise women's voices with you. So thank you for listening to Wise Woman Stories. I'm your host, Delia Quigley. Until next time.